Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guests are from SIG. They are Brent, Haynan, and Christian Bauer. How are you guys?
Doing well today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fine. Thanks. Great to be here.
I'm really excited to talk to you both. What your company is doing is very interesting in the world of sustainable packaging, and I think it's an important topic for us to cover. So let's start with, what is SIG Group?
Well, SIG is the world's second largest producer of aseptic packaging solutions. That includes the filling machines, but also the packaging materials to run on them, which we can refer to as the beverage carton. And this is used for packing UHT milk, but also juices, soft drink, but also liquid food.
Now, aseptic packaging is really critical to sustainability in food packaging, and because of several things. But my understanding is it dramatically increases the shelf life of the product that you're packaging. Is that what you talk about mostly?
Yeah, I think that ambient advantage is there, and that makes us really growing fastly also in markets where supply chains might not be cooled or chilled. So this is one of the bigger advantage of our system. And I think we deliver aseptic performance also together with a strong sustainability assets that help us to produce a solution that is also not only good for the food it contains, but also in terms of sustainable packaging.
Yeah, another great point. You don't have to use a refrigerated truck when you're shipping the product, which is an incredible advantage for cost savings and a sustainability advantage. Very important point.
Cory, I'd add one more piece to that, just
Please.
Briefly. Whenever you look at a back of the house applications in a business to business or a QSR, quick serve restaurant type of an application, a lot of times it offers a space benefits, right? Where you don't have as much chilled storage in a convenience store or a quick serve restaurant. So you can bring in product at ambient, store it at ambient where there's usually ample storage, and then, have a Kanban system to cool product that you need at temperature, but you don't have to, take up all of that cooled storage that is often limited in back of house. So there's significant benefits from a business standpoint that's often part of the value prop.
Yeah, incredibly important point there. So let's talk about the journey here. Brent or Christian, do you want to speak to SIG's Combi Block sustainability journey?
Yeah, I think I'd like to kick that off. I think if we just touched ambience, we touched aseptic, so we touched a little bit already the product life cycle. And I think our journey embarks on trying to do the best job with almost nothing. And that means using as little as you can as a material, being highly resource efficient, thinking about the full value chain, the loads that you have to transport, etc., and the performance, of course, on shelf at the consumer. Yeah. I think we did in the past already a good job in using as little as we can, as our system is based on renewable raw materials, laminated with a little bit of aluminium foil and a bit of polymers to make it all work. That delivers already an incredibly low carbon footprint. And we have understood that this key asset distinguishes our system from the others, and that makes us offering the lowest carbon footprint packaging. And with that, we said, well, if we put out an agenda to make it even better, then we should go beyond what's already good. And that's why that's the sustainability journey, which in essence is about trying to develop a packaging that delivers even more back than it takes. And we embark on that story by talking about the forests that we try or that we penetrate responsibly. Of course, they are replenishing while using the carton. The carton is fully recyclable. That gives us all the fibers back that you would have been using along the way. And on top, we deliver a lot on climate. We have set the science-based target in the company, and we, of course, drive our carbon footprint down along the value chain, and the same as we do for the products that have, of course, a lot of climate positive collateral, so to say. Last but not least, then striving to make more food available with our solutions. This is the package that we talk about when we talk about our sustainability agenda, trying to lead on this, and therefore perfectly handing over to Brent and all the beauty Scholle IPN brings into our business.
Well said. Brent, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I as Christian alluded to, I come from the legacy Scholle IPN business from that side. So that's really around bag and box and pouches. And similar to cartons, I mean, we really pair well with that because our story, in that legacy has always been around resource efficiency, so we have a longstanding presence there. So it's a complementary pairing with SIG. That efficiency is a huge commonality across cartons, BIB, and pouches. And whenever you look at the Scholle legacy aspect, it's really across a multitude of channels. So a significant portion of our business is business to business, ingredients, like I said, convenience stores, quick serve restaurants, things like that. And in all of those, we excel really in a product to package ratio, inbound logistics, evacuation, and product waste, right? The package format is extremely efficient and serves, and when you look at an overall sustainability portfolio, sustainability is multifaceted, right? And some of the biggest levers in those facets are around reducing weight, reducing shipping. We talked about aseptic and cooling, but also product waste and evacuation. Wasting product at the end is, all that value is driven in there. Everything you waste, you're wasting all that value you've driven in.
Yeah, really important points. And when I think bag in a box, I think of a couple of things. I think of the big containers of ketchup that I used to see at restaurants and boxed wine. Are those some examples of things that you would provide, or can you give us some more maybe that are more in your niche?
Yeah, I have kind of a canned answer to this because I've answered this question a lot. We are,
Sure.
we are a niche. We are a niche in the packaging world, but a very interesting one. And the way I say it is, we package anything from wine that has to taste a certain way months after it's packed to shelf-stable low-acid products, dairy, non-dairy, coffee, etc. Usually dispensed through a closed-loop system, and then anything in between. So as long as there's not a compatibility issue, if you can pump it, if it flows, we can pack it. We're a liquid packaging company. And whenever you think about those formats can go anywhere in pouch down to, 50 mLs up to 1,500 liters. So you were talking about ketchup.
Wow.
Well, ketchup's a really interesting one because the tomatoes can get packed into our bags aseptically, stored for an extended period of time. Those bags can get sent to a processing facility and turned into ketchup, which is then put in our bag again. And then that bag goes to, a quick serve restaurant for dispense through a closed loop dispensing system that's very food safe and very efficient. So, whenever you think about the retail aspect, the retail bit that you see, the wine, that's what everybody knows, it is a portion, but it's probably the smaller portion of what we do. A lot of what we do is back of the house, business to business transaction type stuff. So a multitude of channels really across, again, almost anything that can be pumped, we pack.
I remember my first job before packaging was in a pizza restaurant, and making the pizza sauce. I would go through, I think it was 7 bags of ketchup and 3 bags of tomato paste, and they were always in the bag in a box system. And I always thought they were really cool. So very easy to use, very, like you said, efficient. There's a lot of really key points here that you're making. Thank you so much for that. Absolutely. I'm excited to talk about the future of your companies, or I should say your total company. Are there markets that you're looking to explore that maybe are something new for you?
Brent, you may want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that. I just I tend to talk quite a bit, so sometimes I gotta slow down just a bit.
That's okay. That's what we're here to do. Yeah.
I mean, as I said before, we're in so many different channels, and I think one of the most interesting areas that we see, and a lot of where my job function has moved into, is innovation and changing the way that business is done. And that often has significant tie-in with sustainability because very few people are going to look to start a solution that isn't sustainable from the get-go, right? And one of the areas that we see an exceptional amount of interest in is smart dispensing. So smart dispensing really allows you to package and distribute single strength or concentrated components that can be combined, reconstituted, diluted, whatever needs to be done to achieve the desired effect. And that desired effect might be taste, it might be efficacy, or it might just be to accommodate mass customization, because that is, the trend from a consumer standpoint. Everybody wants to customize things exactly how they want. But whenever you think about efficacy, you think about a cleaning chemical or, something like that, it needs to be dosed accurately. So there is a significant amount of interest in those solutions across a variety of different industries and applications. But all of those really contribute to the sustainability, because you're using exactly what is needed in exactly the right amount, and the packaging is delivering it in a safe and protective way.
Right.
This is I think just the bridge to the growth drivers that we see in our business, because I think the perfect amount of product packed perfectly and safe is something that is really tracking and getting attention in the entirety of markets that we serve, and also in the new ones that we are entering. It's the traditional ones where we have changing consumer behaviors that want to have more itemized food items, differentiation in the market, more healthy food. But at the same time, it's the developing countries where you might have other offerings and other solutions. And both, let's say, driven by our, let's say, strong commitment to sustainable packaging. So trying to be even better on delivering key packaging assets that make our solutions the most sustainable one, which helps us in, let's say, markets where sustainability is already established and consumers have some sensitivities, or even policymakers some interest to regulate. But at the same time, also where people appreciate responsible sourcing, or where people are really concerned on where that material comes from, etc. So we have a response here, and we can link that to the main threats that we have currently on this planet. And so we are quite happy there to offer a good solution for good growth.
Yeah, really important topics there. Thank you so much for covering those. I noticed on your website that it says you use 75% renewable wood fiber, and that you're FSC certified. Can you speak through that process and how important that is?
Yeah, I think we embarked on that, and we have been the first to do that in our industry. And we even developed the logo so that consumers also can see what choice they take. FSC is to us responsible sourcing in essence. It was also entrepreneurial to that responsible sourcing landscape. And it simply means that you should use the forest under maintained biodiversity conditions, if you want to have it a bit more complicated, or simply you maintain and replenish the forests as they are, while protecting biodiversity and meeting strong criteria and principles that are under the umbrella of the FSC certification scheme. And then trace that through the value chain. That means that the consumer gets that performance in the packaging. And that is to us a let's say, foundation to say that the resources and the fibers that we use are replenished in the forests while we maintain biodiversity. And this is the principle that we also then took for the other materials that go into the cartons. So we have been also entrepreneurial to include aluminium that would be certified then by ASI, which is a aluminium stewardship initiative that has the same mission to say, well, let's get the right materials into the product system, as well as we do our FCC Plus for our renewable polymer feedstock. So to simply make sure that whatever we source, we know where it comes from, and it would potentially even add value to where we source it from.
Oh, that's exciting to hear, and impressive to know that you're focusing all the way back to the fibers, and starting with the raw material as a sustainable, initiative is really exciting to hear. So I think we've established that your life cycle analysis proves that your packaging is the best, or one of the best in many situations. Can you speak to the recyclability of these packaging, in particular the aseptic packaging?
Yeah, I think first of all our packs are recyclable. That's for sure. That's what is one of our major design principles. And then we can ask about whether they are recycled or not. And I think the second message here is that every carton that gets collected gets recycled, because people like the fiber in there, and it's quite easily to be taken out. You simply need to shred it, and then you have it in your in water like a washing machine, and you can pulp it and then use it as paper. And so the tricky part is to make sure that it's collected in the various geographies, and that is in some of the more developed markets, sometimes more easy than in others. So we are quite proud that, for example, in Europe, we have about, we can say every second carton has a second life. So we have 50% recycling rate achieved. Some geographies like Germany are even higher, like 70 or 90% in Belgium, while there are still challenges, of course, to trigger collection in other countries. And there we try to be innovative also to get collection going, but also to develop drivers that makes carton collect themselves because people see an economic interest in them.
So well said, and such an important point here that the material is having more and more value and becoming more profitable to recycle, which is great to hear. Brent, do you want to speak to the bag in the box recyclable rates or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, probably yourself and most listeners to this podcast are familiar with flexibles, right? So what we do with bag and box and pouch are both flexibles. And I alluded to it before, and I'm always going to focus on it. But sustainability is multifaceted, right? And end of life is definitely in focus at the moment. But the impact of package sustainability is oftentimes more impactful in those other facets, right? If you have the right package for the application, you're typically going to have source reduction, reduced energy usage, reduced fuel consumption, and reduced greenhouse gas emission. And also you're going to control waste, right? So all of those are impactful. That's not to say that end of life isn't important. I just don't want those important aspects to a full sustainability solution to be disregarded for the sake of end of life. As we look at end of life, I can say that, for the most part, and I'm based in North America, so I have a bit of a North American, tilt to this conversation. But we face challenges with respect to flexibles that are not clean and dry. Right now, the biggest challenge that we have is we have a store drop-off system, but it only accepts clean and dry polyethylene flexibles, essentially.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that we're resting our laurels. We're not. We actually were the first to receive APR recognition for a recyclable BIB solution. We're the first and only BIB to do so. And we were actually one of the first flexibles to get that APR recognition. So when you look at that, there's two aspects to recyclability. There's technical recyclability, and then there's functional recyclability, right? So we are working on both aspects of that. When I think about it, I don't stress as much about technical recyclability. We have an excellent technical team. It's something that we focus on. We've already received recognition for one solution. We have an entire pipeline of solutions, right? We can make technically recyclable solutions. Collection and those systems are where I don't mean we as in Scholle IPN or SIG, I mean flexibles as a whole face challenges. So we're engaging with numerous groups to find common ground that we can take actionable steps to improve in the areas that are outside of our control. But we're not just saying, hey, this is out of our control, best of luck. We're getting engaged in that and working to find those solutions. So we have an excellent sustainability story. There's challenges with end of life, and we're facing those challenges.
I just would love to add an aspect, as Brent says, he doesn't like that much if it's wet and dirty or wet and hot.
Yeah.
Because I just said if we wash the cartons and shred it and get the fiber out, then we have, of course, something that's wet and not pure, and that's a fraction consisting mainly out of polymers and aluminum for layers. And that brings us together in saying, well, there are materials that are quite a challenge. And what we, for example, do in Germany is that we build a larger capacity, in particular for that type of material, to produce pure polymers and aluminum out of it again, as we have a high established market in Germany. While in other countries, we say, why shouldn't we have a technology that replaces chipboard or building material simply by heating and forming that material, because that can already help a lot of people building their homes and houses. So what we try to be globally active is really stimulating potential uses, in particular for materials that are considered to be problematic. And being a global company now even broader, it simply helps us to make sure that we, as quickly as we can, try out things in one country and put that to another one to make recycling really happening in the different markets where we're active. So welcome, Brent, and good to see that we have like a joint interest on the materials that really can bring more value.
Yeah, and Cory, if I could, Christian
Please.
highlighted something that it would be remiss of me not to speak to, because again, I have kind of that North American tilt to my head. But we do also have the world's first bag-in-box linked to post-consumer recycled content that's being trialed with major customers in Europe. And similarly, we also have recycle-ready monomaterial spouted pouches that are in trial with major customers outside of North America. So I really didn't highlight all of the innovations that we are working on, and that was a failure on my part there. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that, but echo Christian sentiments, and it just kind of reminded me of those things.
Well, and like you said, the bag-in-a-box system is great because the majority of it's corrugated, and that's very easily recycled today. Of course, we're making major strides in collection and recycling of flexible films and materials with the onset of extended producer responsibilities here in the USA and across the world. I think that those numbers will jump in the next 5 to 10 years dramatically. So would you agree with that?
No, yes, I would agree. And as you said, around the corrugate, typically by weight, the corrugate is 95% of the package by weight. Mm-hmm. So if you classify that way, the vast majority of our package is getting recycled, but the focus is on where the challenges are. But again, as we continue to get everybody swimming in the same direction, be that through EPR and regulatory control or industry engagement, and more than likely both, we're going to see improvement over the next 5 or 10 years. I agree with you, Cory.
I think just adding to this, I think and thanks for putting it this way, and there is where we definitely need to rethink systems and our perception and understanding. As I said, we are ready to source our fibers from forests that replenish while we speak. That means the same unit or amount of forests is there at the end of the year, while at the same time there is the recycled fiber. So you have a system that is able to create resources. And this is something completely different from preventing depletion of depletable resources. And if we manage also to produce polymers from renewable feedstock, we have a win-win system, maintaining our resource base like the forests, and at the same time adding value to where materials are needed, which is something that is, to me, the right objective, rather than just preventing to lose too much, which is an argument by others used mainly for recycling and recyclability.
Yeah, a friend of mine who's much smarter than I am likes to say, let's keep those molecules in play. And let's keep using them over and over and over again in different forms. That's okay. Points. Thank you, Christian and Brent. Well said. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have, or anything that you'd like to speak to, maybe as a closing statement?
Sorry, I'm thinking.
That's
Christian,
okay.
if you have anything, feel free to chime in.
No rush.
Christian.
Yeah, I think if a closing statement is about sustainable packaging, then it's definitely important to us not just to look at the end of life of the system and circularity. We need systems really that help us like to approach climate change, biodiversity loss, and the global threats by designing a system that adds value on all of these. And I think that our systems are perfectly catered to deliver that. And this is the journey that's ahead of us. Not saying that circular economy isn't a nice paradigm or blueprint, but it needs really to deliver on performance. And this is where we are there to deliver.
Well said, sir. Brent?
Yeah, I'm maybe going to overlap a little bit with what Christian said, but I think what he said is incredibly important. And I'm going to put a little bit of my thought around that. One of my biggest concerns is, people and organizations respond to incentives. So I worry about incentives that focus on one aspect of sustainability at potentially the detriment or disregard of another. So, and there are, to be very careful with this, there are areas or regions where legislation around recyclability and CO2 reduction are at odds with one another. And sustainability is a multifaceted, it's a rabbit hole, right? There's a ton of different aspects, and you need to consider that entire balance. And I do not want to see us make poor decisions when it comes to carbon emission reduction for the sake of circularity, right? We need to find the best solution overall. That's been the guiding principle behind our sustainability positions for both companies moving, in legacy and moving forward. So I support EPR. I support, that driving. I want intelligent driving forward, keeping all aspects of sustainability in mind. The other thing that I would say, and this ties in, we're moving into the SIG, the company, and for us, everything we've wanted to do, SIG has that focus. And being larger brings us capabilities to do more. So right now, for us moving forward, it's a very exciting time, and everything's moving faster, right? And we are starting to see people kind of swim the same direction. When you really care about sustainability, over the past few years, sometimes it's challenging or frustrating because you have conversations where some people are really interested and some people are checking boxes, right? And that's not what we have with SIG. And I would say increasingly, that's not what we have across the board. So, things are moving faster. Things are all starting to kind of happen together, and it's encouraging. So I guess that's my closing thoughts.
Yeah, well said. And as a large company, you can take small risks and try new things and do a pilot program with a customer. That's so valuable to the whole future of sustainable packaging. Thank you both. Really appreciate you, Christian and Brent, for taking some time to be on the show. Thank you, Landsberg Aurora, for sponsoring this podcast. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Cory. Appreciate it.